First Contact. High Commander Zix-427 had never failed a conquest in his 300 cycles of service to the Xilian Empire. His crystalline form, precisely cut with exactly 427 facets, a point of pride that earned him his designation, sparkled with countless medals of victory. The command bridge of the Imperial flagship, Crystal Prominence, hummed with the soft resonance of quantum computers and the gentle chiming of his crystalline crew going about their duties. Another successful integration, High Commander, Lieutenant Zix-891 reported, his junior-grade crystals gleaming with admiration. The flubberworms of Xenon 5 have accepted our terms of surrender. Their civilization has been categorized, indexed, and added to the Empire's collection. Zix-427 allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, his facets refracting light in what his species considered a smile. Excellent. Update the Conquest Efficiency Report and schedule the standard victory celebration. The purple nutrients, this time. The Xilian Empire's method of conquest was less a military campaign and more a corporate takeover. They had slides, spreadsheets, and even a Best Practices for Planetary Subjugation handbook that was updated quarterly. Their current success rate was 100%, and High Commander Zix-427 had personally overseen 7 of those victories. "Sir," called out Science Officer Zix-156, her crystalline appendages twitching in what could only be described as excitement. "Long-range scanners have detected a new civilization in Sector 7G. Initial analysis suggests they've achieved nuclear fusion capabilities." "Barely worth our time," Zix-427 sighed, but procedure was procedure. "Bring up the preliminary assessment on the main display." The holographic screen materialized, showing a mostly blue planet with scattered landmasses. Earth, according to their database. But what caught the High Commander's attention wasn't the planet itself, it was the vast array of signals emanating from it. "What am I looking at?" he asked, his perfect crystalline structure vibrating with confusion. "Sir, they call it social media," Lieutenant Zix-891 explained. "It appears to be some form of global communication network, but, well, sir, we're having trouble understanding its purpose." The screen filled with examples, humans recording themselves falling off various objects, engaging in synchronized dancing rituals, arguing about whether certain foods belonged on circular bread discs, and an overwhelming number of videos featuring small furry creatures they called cats. "Fascinating," Zix-427 murmured, watching a compilation of humans attempting something called a milk crate challenge. "They document their failures for entertainment. How charmingly primitive." But as the assessment continued, something began to nag at the High Commander's perfectly ordered mind. The humans were chaotic. Unpredictable. They seemed to operate on logic that defied the Empire's most sophisticated analytical algorithms. "Sir," Science Officer Zix-156 interjected, "I believe we should conduct a more thorough analysis before proceeding. Their behavior patterns are unusual." Zix-427 waved a crystalline appendage dismissively. "They still think nuclear fusion is impressive. Schedule the invasion for next Tuesday, after lunch. We'll use Standard Conquest Protocol 7B. "But sir," Lieutenant Zix-891 persisted, "have you seen this thing they call Twitter? It appears to be some form of voluntary psychological warfare they inflict upon themselves." "All the more reason they need our guidance," Zix-427 declared. "Prepare the fleet. And someone please analyze these memes they keep generating. I want to understand what 'this is fine' means when accompanied by an image of a dog in a burning room." As the Crystal Prominence's crew began invasion preparations, nobody noticed a small alert flashing on a secondary monitor. Earth's internet traffic had already detected their presence, but instead of panic, the humans were busy creating something called aesthetic edits of their crystalline ships set to something called lofi beats. The invasion force assembled with geometric precision, their ships forming perfect fractals in high Earth orbit. High Commander Zix-427 stood at his command post, ready to begin Standard Conquest Protocol 7B, completely unaware that he was about to learn a valuable lesson about the danger of underestimating a species that had turned chaos into an art form. "Begin transmission of the standard surrender demands," he ordered, straightening his ceremonial light-refracting metals. The message was broadcast globally in every known human language: "Greetings, beings of Earth. Your planet has been selected for integration into the Zillion Empire. Resistance is futile. Please fill out forms XC-789 through XC-789Q to facilitate your smooth transition into our glorious collective." The response was not what they expected. "Sir," Lieutenant Zix-891 reported, his crystalline form vibrating with confusion, "the humans are rating our transmission on something called Rotten Tomatoes. We're currently at 43% with complaints about our generic alien invasion dialogue and lack of original content. They're reviewing our invasion." Zix 427's perfect structure developed its first-ever stress fracture. "Yes, sir. And someone called XX_memo0RD_XX has already created something called a remix of our threat message. It has gone viral, sir." The High Commander floated to the main view screen, watching in disbelief as humans pointed recording devices at their ships, arguing about whether they were practical effects or CGI, and debating if this was viral marketing for something called Marvel Phase 5. "Deploy the intimidation probes," he ordered, his voice resonating with determination. "Show them the true might of the Zillion Empire." Thousands of crystalline probes descended upon Earth's major cities, their perfect geometric forms designed to inspire awe and terror. Instead, within hours, humans had started a trend of putting tiny hats on them and naming them. In Tokyo, a probe had become a social media sensation after being decorated with cat ears. In New York, a street vendor was trying to sell hot dogs to one. "Sir," Science Officer Zix-156 called out, her voice carrying an edge of panic, "they're calling our probes space Roombas and creating something called fan art. Should we adjust Protocol 7B? High Commander Zix-427 stared at the displays showing humans taking selfies with their invasion force, his perfect worldview beginning to crack like his increasingly stressed crystalline structure. "Impossible," he muttered. "This isn't how it's supposed to go. Where's the panic? The submission? The orderly filing of surrender documentation?" A junior officer nervously approached. "Sir, you might want to see this. Someone has started a live stream called Vibing with the Space Crystal Invasion and it's trending worldwide." As the first day of the invasion drew to a close, High Commander Zix-427 sat in his command chair, watching humans turn their carefully planned conquest into what they called content, complete with merchandise, memes, and something particularly baffling called reaction videos. "Perhaps," he said quietly, reviewing the standard conquest protocol manual for the 100th time, "we should have done more research on human psychology." Little did he know, this was just the beginning. The Zillion Empire was about to learn that conquering a species that had turned procrastination into an art form and spite into a motivation would be anything but standard. And somewhere on Earth, a teenager was already figuring out how to make their crystalline technology play something called "Never Gonna Give You Up." Protocol breakdown. By the end of the first week, High Commander Zix-427's perfectly ordered world was falling apart faster than Earth's social media could meme about it. The Zillion Empire's sophisticated invasion protocols, refined across 7 civilizations and 12 galaxies, were proving about as effective as a chocolate teapot against humanity's brand of chaos. "Sir," Lieutenant Zix-891 reported, his crystalline structure vibrating with what could only be described as PTSD, "we've received their official response to our surrender documentation." The High Commander braced himself. "Proceed." The United States sent back the forms covered in something called emoji reactions. The European Union has filed a complaint that our invasion violates their GDPR regulations. Japan has requested merchandising rights, and Australia. The lieutenant paused, his crystals paling. "Australia just wrote, yeah nah, across all 2,347 pages. Zix 427 felt another stress fracture form in his perfect geometric structure. What about our intimidation tactics? Well, sir, when we deployed our fear-inducing atmospheric resonators over New York City, the humans organized something called a rave beneath them. They're calling it Invasion Festival 2024 and selling tickets. It's already sold out. The High Commander floated to his tactical display, watching the carefully planned invasion dissolve into what humans were calling the biggest crossover event since Avengers Endgame. Their ship's perfect crystalline formations were being disrupted because humans kept trying to fly personal aircraft near them to get sick footage for the gram. Fine, he declared, his voice resonating with determination. Initiate Protocol 7B, Section 12, Strategic Resource Control. The Zillion forces moved to seize Earth's crucial infrastructure, only to discover that humans had already created 17 alternative communication networks using everything from modified game consoles to what they claimed was a series of strategically placed pizza delivery drivers. Sir, Science Officer Zix 156 interrupted, her crystals dulled with exhaustion, we've intercepted their resistance communications, but... She paused, clearly disturbed. 90% of it appears to be something called shitposting. The resistance wasn't organizing in bunkers or secret military bases as expected. Instead, they were coordinating through Discord servers, Reddit threads, and something particularly chaotic called Facebook event pages. The largest resistance movement had started as a joke event titled, "They Can't Stop All of Us If We Naruto Run." Deploy the Psychological Warfare Unit, Zix 427 ordered, reaching for his emergency purple nutrients. Show them the true might of the Empire's mental dominance. The Zillions broadcast their most fear-inducing messages across Earth's frequencies, carefully crafted transmissions designed to break the spirit of any sentient species. Within hours, humans had auto-tuned them into something called alien wave lo-fi beats to invade Earth to. It was topping charts globally. But beneath the memes and mockery, a more serious resistance was taking shape. Humans, it turned out, had been inadvertently preparing for alien invasions for decades through what they called science fiction. While the Zillions had been perfecting their conquest protocols, humans had been gaming out every possible invasion scenario in their media. Sir, a tactical officer reported, we've detected organized resistance cells using tactics from something called Half-Life 2, and naming their operations after Independence Day, quotes. They're treating this like a game they've played before. The resistance's methods defied all military logic. In Brazil, a Zillion battalion was defeated when resistance fighters challenged them to a dance-off, their crystalline troops unable to process the concept of serving that didn't involve conquest. In Canada, civilians apologetically but firmly blocked invasion routes with hockey games. In Russia, locals simply stared down crystalline battle tanks until the crews felt too awkward to advance. This isn't how war works. Zix 427 shouted, watching humans turn combat footage into something called Lo-fi beats to resist alien invasion to. But the true crisis came when the resistance discovered that Zillion battle computers could be crashed by forcing them to calculate the value of dividing by zero or trying to understand why humans found cat videos so entertaining. A 14-year-old hacker wrote a virus that made all their systems try to process something called Gen Z humor. Sir, Lieutenant Zix 891 reported grimly, they've started applying something called boo-woo speak to our threat broadcasts. The High Commander watched in horror as their latest ultimatum was transformed. Original, surrender or face annihilation. Human version, Sauwender au face annihilation uwu nuzzles death way. The situation in the field wasn't any better. Their troops, used to fighting organized military forces, were completely unprepared for civilian resistance that treated the invasion like a social media challenge. In Minnesota, a Zillion force that seized a shopping mall found themselves trapped in an impromptu flash mob. In Italy, grandmothers were bombing their troops with homemade pasta while streaming it on TikTok. Perhaps, Science Officer Zix 156 suggested carefully, watching a video of a grandmother in Naples scolding a crystalline battle robot for being too skinny. We should have threatened a species that actually fears extinction. The High Commander stared at the latest intelligence report. Humans had started a reality TV show called Alien House, where they tried to teach captured Zolian troops about Earth culture. The ratings were astronomical. How do you conquer a species, he wondered aloud, that turns their own potential doom into entertainment? The answer came from an unexpected source. A junior analyst had been studying human internet behavior and made a startling discovery. "Sir," she reported, "humans appear to have developed an immunity to existential dread through something called memes. They've turned anxiety about their own existence into a coping mechanism." But before the High Commander could process this information, another crisis emerged. Their attempts to disable Earth's satellite network had backfired spectacularly when humans simply started using something called TikTok dances to transmit coded messages. Their most sophisticated encryption analysts were having nervous breakdowns trying to determine if the humans were sharing intelligence or just vibing. "Sir," Lieutenant Zix 891 reported, his structure now showing multiple stress fractures, "the humans have begun challenging our battle formations with synchronized dance routines. Our troops can't tell if it's an attack or a new social media trend." As the second week of the invasion drew to a close, High Commander Zix 427 sat in his command chair, watching humanity turn their carefully planned conquest into what they called content. Their perfect invasion protocols, refined across generations, were crumbling before a species that had somehow turned chaos into an art form and defiance into entertainment. And somewhere on Earth, a group of teenagers had just figured out how to reprogram a captured Zolian battle robot to play something called Minecraft. The Empire's greatest conquest was becoming its most spectacular failure, all because they had failed to account for humanity's greatest weapon, their ability to face the apocalypse with a meme and a smile. Cultural crisis. The Zolian Empire's Department of Xenical Analysis was experiencing its first collective mental breakdown. Their most sophisticated behavioral prediction algorithms had completely failed to model human responses, and their top analysts were having existential crises trying to understand human meme evolution. "Look at this data." Chief Analyst Zix 6723 waved his crystalline appendages frantically at the holographic displays. "They respond to existential threats with something called posting. Their defensive strategies include something called dunking on us. What kind of species weaponizes social embarrassment?" High Commander Zix 427, his once perfect crystalline structure now resembling a stressed geometric abstract art piece, floated through the analysis center. The walls were covered with attempts to decode human behavior patterns, including a particularly disturbing flowchart titled, "Why Do They Say, Bruh?" A Scientific Analysis. "Sir," a junior analyst called out, "we've detected a new form of resistance. Humans they're writing something called fanfiction about our invasion forces." "Explain," the High Commander demanded, already dreading the answer. "Well, sir, they're creating elaborate stories about our troops. Some of them are romantic in nature. There's a particularly popular genre called enemies to lovers where they pair our warriors with human characters. The hashtag Crystalline Crush is trending globally. The Empire's attempts to understand and counter human culture were producing increasingly bizarre results. Their psychological warfare division had accidentally started several viral trends, including one where humans attempted to vibe check their battle robots. "Report from the field, sir," Lieutenant Zix 891 announced, entering the analysis center. "Our attempts to disrupt human commerce have failed. They've started something called a black market meme economy. They're trading digital images of our troops looking confused for something called cryptocurrency." But the real crisis came when the Empire attempted to infiltrate human social structures. They had deployed their most sophisticated infiltration units, crystalline beings capable of mimicking human form, only to be immediately exposed because they couldn't understand something called cultural references. "Sir," Science Officer Zix 156 reported, "we lost an entire infiltration unit because they couldn't correctly respond to it's Wednesday, my dudes. Another unit blew their cover because they didn't know who Rick Astley was. The High Commander's response was interrupted by an urgent alert. A group of human influencers had somehow gained access to their main communication frequency and were now live streaming their invasion planning sessions with commentary. Make it stop, Zix427 groaned, watching their latest tactical briefing receive real-time reactions from something called Twitch chat. But the humans weren't just mocking them anymore. They had begun to systematically dismantle the Empire's technological advantages through what they called crowdsourcing. A global network of programmers was working to decode their systems, sharing their findings through what appeared to be elaborate joke formats called programming memes. "Sir," the head of cybersecurity reported, his crystalline form flickering with distress, "they've started explaining our weaknesses through something called TikTok tutorials. A teenager in Seoul just taught millions of humans how to crash our systems by making them process paradoxes." The Empire's carefully constructed hierarchy was crumbling in the face of human organizational chaos. Their command structure couldn't cope with resistance that operated through what humans called vibes and energy. How do they coordinate without a clear chain of command? Zix427 demanded, watching humans organize complex resistance operations through what appeared to be a series of reaction GIFs and emojis. The situation reached a new level of crisis when humans discovered that the Empire's crystalline technology was particularly vulnerable to something they called dad jokes. The pure illogic of these verbal constructs caused their systems to buffer endlessly, trying to process why humans would intentionally create such painful wordplay. "Sir," Lieutenant Zix891 reported, now permanently stressed, "a human just crashed an entire battalion's neural network by asking them why the Scarecrow won an award." And, the High Commander asked, despite himself. "Because he was outstanding in his field, sir. We lost 300 troops to complete system failure." The Empire's attempt to adapt to human culture was producing equally catastrophic results. Their cultural assimilation department, tasked with understanding and manipulating human society, had gone native. Several analysts had become obsessed with human entertainment, binge-watching something called reality TV, instead of completing their reports. "Sir," Science Officer Zix156 interrupted, "we've detected a new problem. Humans have started a social media challenge called Cute Your Invader. They're approaching our troops with small animals called puppies and kittens. Our warriors they're becoming emotionally compromised." The evidence was undeniable. Footage showed hardened Zillion warriors being reduced to confused crystalline puddles by tiny earth creatures that humans called good boys and fluffs. But the most devastating blow to the Empire's dignity came when humans discovered their crystalline forms had certain properties that made them excellent for something called ASMR. Videos of their troops' resonant frequencies were going viral, with millions of humans using them as sleep sounds and relaxation aids. "We are a conquering force." High Commander Zix427 shouted, his voice creating a harmonious resonance that someone immediately sampled for a lo-fi beats track. Not a source of ambient noise. The Empire's last attempt to assert dominance through cultural means backfired spectacularly when they tried to create their own memes to counter human propaganda. Their carefully constructed information warfare campaign was immediately labeled cringe and turned into something called a copypasta. "Sir," a communications officer reported, "humans are now rating our invasion attempts on something called Yelp. We have 2 stars. The main complaints are lack of originality and poor customer service." As the third week of the invasion descended into further chaos, High Commander Zix427 faced an uncomfortable truth. The Empire's greatest weakness wasn't human technology or military might, it was their complete inability to comprehend or counter a species that had turned absurdity into an art form. And somewhere on Earth, a group of teenagers had just started a viral trend of using the Empire's threatening broadcasts as background music for their dance videos. The hashtag #ZillionZumba was about to break the internet. The conquest of Earth was becoming a lesson in humility, delivered through memes, sprinkled with emojis, and set to a soundtrack of remixed alien threats. The Empire's perfect order was drowning in a sea of human chaos, and they were only just beginning to realize that maybe, just maybe, they had invaded the wrong planet. Bureaucratic breakdown. In the fourth week of the invasion, High Commander Zix 427 decided to deploy the Empire's most sophisticated weapon, bureaucracy. If military might couldn't subdue Earth, surely drowning them in paperwork would do the trick. After all, no civilization had ever survived the Empire's dreaded Form XC-789-Q application for surrender, extended version. Deploy the administrative attack force, he commanded, his stress-fractured crystalline form gleaming with desperate hope. Send them everything. The forms, the questionnaires, the surveys, the compliance reports. All of it. What the Empire didn't expect was that humans had evolved their own Byzantine bureaucracies, and they were about to witness the true horror of Earth's administrative warfare. Sir, Lieutenant Zix 891 reported, his crystalline structure vibrating with confusion, the humans have responded to our forms, with their own forms. They're demanding we fill out something called Environmental Impact Assessment forms for every ship in our fleet. The High Commander scoffed. How bad could their paperwork possibly be? The answer came in the form of a transmission from the United Nations. They had responded to the Empire's 2,347-page surrender document with a 15,000-page counterproposal, complete with appendices, addendums, and a requirement for everything to be submitted in triplicate. Sir, Science Officer Zix 156 called out, her voice trembling, the humans have created something called a Change.org petition demanding we provide proper parking permits for our invasion fleet. It has millions of signatures. But the true administrative horror was yet to come. The Empire's attempt to establish a planetary governance structure was met with an avalanche of local zoning laws, homeowners association regulations, and something particularly terrifying called building codes. They're saying our crystalline structures don't meet proper safety requirements, a bewildered architect reported. They want us to install emergency exits and wheelchair ramps on our battle platforms. And something called OSHA is demanding we provide proper safety equipment for our troops. The Empire's administrative forces were facing unprecedented resistance. Their attempts to implement standard conquest protocols were being buried under mountains of Earth bureaucracy. Every action required a permit. Every permit required multiple forms. Every form needed to be processed through different departments, each with their own Byzantine procedures. Sir, a desperate administrator called out, the humans have introduced something called mandatory sensitivity training for our invasion forces. They're insisting we can't continue the conquest without proper HR certification. The situation reached a new level of absurdity when human lawyers got involved. The Empire's legal department, used to simply declaring laws by right of conquest, found themselves drowning in class action lawsuits, copyright claims, and patent disputes. They're saying we violated their intellectual property rights, legal officer Zix 333 reported, his crystalline structure showing signs of severe stress. Apparently, someone had already trademarked our invasion methods for a movie concept. They're demanding royalties. High Commander Zix 427 watched in horror as humans turned their bureaucratic warfare into entertainment. Someone had started a reality TV show called Invasion Court, where human lawyers argued cases against bewildered Zillion legal representatives. It was getting better ratings than their actual invasion. Sir, Lieutenant Zix 891 interrupted, we have a new problem. The humans have discovered our weakness for proper documentation and are exploiting it. They're demanding we provide proof of insurance for each battle drone, registration for all our weapons, and something called a Cosmic Vehicle Inspection Certificate. The Empire's attempt to counter with their own administrative measures backfired spectacularly. When they demanded humans fill out citizenship applications for the Empire, they received billions of forms filled out in something called Duwu Speak and Fleet Speak. Their processing systems crashed trying to determine if Duwu was a valid legal signature. But the true masterpiece of human bureaucratic resistance came from an unexpected source: customer service departments. When the Empire set up a conquest complaint hotline, as required by Standard Protocol 7B, they found themselves trapped in endless automated phone trees and hold music. Please listen carefully as our menu options have changed, echoed through the Crystal Prominence's command center, driving the crew to the brink of madness. For planetary surrender, press 1. For resistance inquiries, press 2. For all other apocalypses, please stay on the line. The Empire's attempt to streamline the conquest through digital means met an even more bizarre fate. Their online submission system was flooded with what humans called meme submissions. Instead of surrender documents, they received endless variations of something called Rick Roll and pictures of cats asking, "Can I has surrender forms?" "Sir," a systems administrator reported, twitching, "they've turned our document processing system into something called a Discord server. They're sharing invasion memes in the general chat." High Commander Zix 427's last attempt at administrative control involved implementing a standard feedback system. The results were devastating. Humans began leaving Yelp reviews for individual invasion ships, rating their conquest attempts on a 5-star scale, and leaving detailed critiques of their customer service. 1 star, Lieutenant Zix 891 read aloud, his voice cracking. Invasion was scheduled for 3 p.m., arrived at 3:05. Very unprofessional. Also, their death rays aren't gluten-free. As the 4th week of the invasion descended into paperwork-induced chaos, the High Commander faced an uncomfortable truth. They had initiated bureaucratic warfare against a species that had turned administrative obstruction into an art form. And somewhere in a government office, a bored civil servant was about to inform the mighty Zillion Empire that their conquest permit application couldn't be processed because they had filled out Form XC-789Q in blue ink instead of black. The Empire's perfect bureaucracy was drowning in a sea of human red tape, and they were only just beginning to understand the true horror of Earth's administrative resistance. Their conquest was being defeated not by weapons or technology, but by the most terrifying force in the universe: properly documented compliance requirements. Cultural integration. As the 5th week of the invasion dawned, High Commander Zix 427 sat in his command chair, his once perfect crystalline structure now resembling an abstract art installation of stress fractures and anxiety-induced facets. The mighty Zillion Empire, conquerors of 7 civilizations across 12 galaxies, had been brought to their knees not by military might, but by something humans called viral content. "Status report," he commanded, his voice resonating with defeated acceptance. Lieutenant Zix 891, whose crystalline form now sparkled with what humans called friendship bracelets, a gift from the Resistance, pulled up the latest statistics. "Sir, it's complicated." "How complicated?" "Our invasion has its own Wikipedia page, 3 documentary crews following our troops, a Netflix special in production, and someone just created a dating app exclusively for matching humans with our soldiers. It's called Crystal Crush." The Empire's final attempt at maintaining control had backfired in ways nobody could have predicted. Their effort to understand human culture through immersion had resulted in what humans called going native. Entire battalions of Zillion troops had become social media influencers, streaming their invasion attempts and reading user comments for engagement. "Sir," Science Officer Zix 156 reported, her crystals now decorated with what humans called stickers, "our cultural analysis team has gone completely rogue. They're running something called a reaction channel, where they watch Earth media and record their responses." The situation in the field had evolved beyond any recognizable form of warfare. The Resistance had weaponized hospitality, launching what they called Operation Kill Them with Kindness. Zillion troops were being invited to family dinners, game nights, and something terrifyingly incomprehensible called karaoke. "High Commander," a tactical officer called out, "we've lost contact with the 47th Crystal Battalion. Last transmission shows them participating in something called a potluck dinner in Minnesota. They're sharing recipes." But the final blow to the Empire's conquest ambitions came from an unexpected source. The Zillion Entertainment Division, recently created to counter human media influence, had accidentally created something that would change everything. "Sir," Lieutenant Zix 891 announced, "our attempt to document our invasion failures for strategic analysis has gone viral. Humans are calling it the best comedy series of the year. We've been nominated for something called an Emmy." High Commander Zix 427 floated to the main view screen, watching as their carefully documented conquest attempt had become Earth's hottest new entertainment franchise. Their tactical meetings had been turned into a sitcom. Their battle reports were being adapted into a series of graphic novels. Someone had even created a musical about their bureaucratic warfare phase. "Perhaps," Science Officer Zix 156 suggested gently, "we should consider a different approach to cultural integration." That's when the High Commander received a most unusual transmission. It was from Earth's premier entertainment companies, social media platforms, and tech corporations. They had a proposal. "Let me get this straight," Zix 427 said, his crystals vibrating with disbelief. "Instead of surrendering to our empire, they want to partner with us." The proposal was unprecedented. Earth's representatives suggested a cultural exchange program instead of a conquest. The Zillion Empire's perfect order and humanity's chaotic creativity could be combined into something entirely new. "Think about it, sir," Lieutenant Zix 891 urged. "Our crystalline technology combined with their content creation. Our organizational efficiency merged with their innovation. It's actually brilliant." The evidence was already there. Zillion-human collaboration had produced extraordinary results, entertainment that spanned galaxies, technology that merged precision with creativity, and a new form of social media that literally sparkled. "Our troops are happier," Science Officer Zix 156 pointed out. "They're learning something called work-life balance. And have you seen what happens when we combine our crystalline light shows with human music festivals?" High Commander Zix 427 looked at his empire's newest statistics. Their cultural influence had increased exponentially. Their approval ratings across the galaxy had skyrocketed. And for the first time in Zillion history, their citizens were actually having fun. "Sir," a communication officer called out, "we're receiving transmission requests from other civilizations. They don't want to surrender, they want to collaborate. Apparently, our failed invasion has become the galaxy's hottest new trend." The High Commander stood before his crew, his stress fractures now resembling what humans called character development, and made the most unprecedented decision in Zillion history. "Send a message to the Empire," he declared. "Tell them we're not conquering Earth. We're merging with it. A mutual cultural exchange program. And someone please explain to the Imperial Council what a collab is." The announcement was met with universal approval, celebrated across both Earth and the Empire with what humans called a massive crossover event. The signing of the Earth-Zillion Cultural Integration Treaty was streamed live across the galaxy, trending on both planetary and interstellar social media. And so, the mighty Zillion Empire's greatest conquest became their most spectacular failure, which paradoxically turned into their greatest success. They had arrived as conquerors but were leaving as collaborators, their perfect crystalline order forever changed by humanity's chaotic creativity. High Commander Zix 427, now sporting what humans called a friendship bracelet, and followed by millions on spacegram, looked out at Earth from his command chair. His perfect structure, once stressed by human chaos, now reflected light in entirely new ways. "Sir," Lieutenant Zix 891 reported, trying to hide his excitement, "Earth's premier entertainment platform wants to know if you'll host next season of Dancing with the Stars, Galactic Edition." The High Commander allowed his crystals to refract light in what he had learned was a smile. Sometimes, he realized, the greatest victory comes not from conquering chaos, but from embracing it. And somewhere on Earth, a teenager was showing a group of Zillion troops how to do something called the Crystal Floss Dance, while another was explaining why cats knocking things off tables was peak comedy. The invasion was over, but something far more interesting had begun, the galaxy's first truly viral cultural fusion, trending across every known social media platform in the universe.